You may be on the verge of missing something far more significant than a chance to make more money or even a groundbreaking invention that transforms the physical world. What's quietly unfolding is a shift in the way human beings perceive, experience, and participate in reality itself. If you fail to recognize it, life will keep moving as it always has, but you'll walk past a doorway that only those who are truly present are able to see. What makes this shift so extraordinary is that it doesn't arrive with dramatic signs. There's no brilliant light filling the sky, no trumpet announcing the beginning of a new era. Instead, it appears in the smallest moments, when your attention is no longer pulled in every direction by endless noise, and for the first time in a very long while, you truly notice what's happening within you. Maybe that's why you're reading these words right now, not because it's a coincidence, and not simply because you're looking for another answer. Somewhere deep inside you, a part of you has already sensed that something no longer fits the old way of living. Intuition often speaks long before the mind can explain what it knows. It doesn't force you, it doesn't argue, it simply waits, patiently, until you become still enough to hear it. We're living in an age where technology is advancing faster than ever before. Every day brings new tools, new forms of artificial intelligence, and an endless stream of information. Yet the more connected we become to the outside world, the more disconnected many of us feel from our inner one. Attention has become the most valuable resource we possess, and also the easiest one to lose. Perhaps the greatest leap of this century won't come from machines becoming smarter. Perhaps it will come from human beings reclaiming ownership of their own attention. When your attention changes, the way you see the world changes. And when the way you see the world changes, your old identity begins to dissolve like morning mist under the first rays of sunlight. From that moment on, a new way of living can quietly emerge, not through force or effort, but through conscious presence in each moment of your life.
1. What is the real leap? First, let go of the image of a magical awakening where every wound disappears overnight. A true leap in consciousness rarely begins that way. More often, it arrives quietly, during a time when you barely recognize yourself anymore. It may come through a season of crisis, inner conflict, emotional exhaustion, or a lingering sense that the things which once gave your life meaning have somehow lost their color. It can also begin when your old identity starts falling apart, like a shell that has become too small to contain the person you're slowly becoming. At first, that feeling can be deeply unsettling. You wonder why you're no longer excited by the ambitions that once consumed you, why praise and recognition no longer bring the satisfaction they used to. And gradually, almost without noticing, you begin craving silence more than noise. You long to spend time in nature, listening to the wind instead of endless comparisons. You find yourself drawn toward meditation, thought-provoking books, or simply moments of stillness where you can observe the flow of your own thoughts. The real transformation isn't that you've become someone else. It's that you've stopped trying to be too many different people at once. Maybe you once wore one face at work, another on social media, and an entirely different one at home. Every environment demanded another mask, and every role pulled you a little farther away from who you truly were. A genuine leap in consciousness is the journey from fragmentation to wholeness. It isn't the moment when every part of your life becomes perfect. It's the moment when every version of yourself gradually returns to the same center, a place where you no longer feel the need to prove who you are, where you stop living for validation and simply exist as your authentic self. And perhaps the deepest sign of a true shift in consciousness is this quiet alignment between your inner world and the way you choose to live every day.
2. Signs you're standing at the edge of a consciousness shift. There are seasons in life when everything on the outside appears completely normal. You go to work, you fulfill your responsibilities, you spend time with friends, you enjoy the same entertainment you've always enjoyed. But when the day comes to an end and you're finally alone, a quiet emptiness remains. It's not exactly sadness, it's not disappointment either. It's simply a feeling that's difficult to put into words, as though something deep within you is still waiting to be discovered. Then, almost without warning, a quiet question begins to surface. It isn't loud, but it refuses to leave. Is this really the life I was meant to live? You don't rush to answer it. You simply notice that the question grows louder with every repeated experience. At first, you might assume you're becoming weak or that you're going through some kind of crisis, but there's another possibility worth considering. Perhaps your old level of consciousness has simply become too small for the person you're growing into. It's like wearing a pair of shoes that once fit perfectly. Now every step feels tight and uncomfortable. The problem isn't your feet, it's that you've outgrown them. From that point forward, subtle changes begin to unfold. You're no longer fascinated by superficial things. Conversations built around status, competition, and comparison start to feel exhausting instead of exciting. You find yourself craving authenticity. You appreciate silence more than constant stimulation. You become more sensitive to other people's emotions, to the presence of nature, and even to the energy of the spaces you enter. Things you once overlooked suddenly touch your heart in ways they never did before. A leap in consciousness doesn't begin by collecting more information. It begins when the way you perceive reality changes. The same experience carries an entirely new meaning. Pain is no longer something you simply try to escape. It becomes a doorway to deeper understanding. And perhaps most importantly, you no longer experience yourself as a separate individual moving through an indifferent world. Instead, you begin to recognize yourself within the world, and the world reflecting itself back through you. That may be the very first sign that a profound journey of transformation has already begun.
3. When your inner world changes, your outer reality begins to follow. Many people expect their lives to change the moment they decide to change themselves. But if you pay close attention, you'll notice that the outside world rarely shifts first. The very first transformation always happens within you. It's the same familiar road you've walked countless times, yet one day you suddenly notice the sunlight filtering through the trees in a way you never did before. It's the same words from someone else, but they no longer stir the same emotional storms inside you. The circumstances haven't changed, the people around you haven't changed. What has changed is the way you see, the way you feel, and the way you respond. And that seemingly small shift quietly opens the door to an entirely new direction. When your perspective changes, your decisions naturally begin to change as well. You stop making choices out of fear, pressure, or the need to please everyone else. Instead, you begin listening more closely to your own inner voice. Actions born from awareness tend to be calmer, clearer, and far more aligned with what truly matters to you. As those choices evolve, your relationships begin to transform too. Some connections grow deeper because they're nourished by honesty and authenticity. Others naturally fade away because they're no longer moving at the same rhythm as you. You stop trying to hold on to people or force anyone to stay. You come to understand that everyone who enters or leaves your life has their own purpose, and you learn to welcome both with a lighter heart. Then one day, you look back and realize your life has changed, not because some miraculous event suddenly appeared, but because the person living that life is no longer the same. The things that once drained your energy no longer have the same power over you. New doors begin to open simply because you're finally willing to take steps you never had the courage to take before. Consciousness doesn't change reality through mystical forces. It quietly transforms the person who is creating that reality. When your inner world becomes clear, every thought, every choice, and every action carries a different kind of energy. And just like a still lake reflects the sky above it, the world around you gradually begins responding to the transformation taking place within.
4. Your attention is where the leap begins. If there's one place quietly shaping your life every single day, it probably isn't your circumstances, and it certainly isn't what other people think about you. It's where you place your attention. The mind is much like a garden. Whatever you water grows, whatever you neglect slowly fades away. Every day, you're repeating something. It might be a thought, a memory, a worry, or a hope. Whatever you continually focus on gradually becomes one of the strongest forces in your inner world. If most of your attention is spent feeding fear, your mind becomes increasingly familiar with anxiety. If you constantly replay feelings of scarcity, you'll begin seeing every opportunity through that same lens of lack. On the other hand, whatever you intentionally nourish with mindful awareness slowly becomes part of who you are. Maybe that's why the more meaningful question is no longer what's happening out there in the world. The world will always move according to its own nature. A far more important question is, what has been quietly training my mind every day without me even noticing? The images you consume, the conversations you replay, the beliefs you silently carry, they all leave tiny impressions, and over time, those tiny impressions become the person you eventually grow into. Eventually, you'll realize you're always standing at the crossroads of two paths. One path runs on autopilot, where your life is guided by algorithms, habits, fear, and unconscious reactions. Decisions happen so quickly that you forget you ever had the power to choose. The other path begins with a brief pause. You observe before reacting. You become present before judging. You become aware before taking action. From that moment of stillness, each decision is no longer driven by impulse, but by a deeper and clearer awareness of who you truly are. The leap in consciousness doesn't begin by changing the entire world. It begins the moment you realize you can choose where your attention goes. And sometimes a tiny shift in focus is all it takes to send your entire life in a completely different direction.
5. What you once chased may no longer fit who you've become. There may come a day when you look back at everything you once desperately wanted and suddenly realize it no longer fills you with the same excitement.
Success is still there. Recognition is still appealing to many people. Competition hasn't disappeared. But somewhere inside you, something has quietly changed. You no longer feel the need to spend so much energy proving that you're smarter, more successful, or more impressive than everyone else. Not because you've given up on your dreams, and not because you've lost your ambition. You've simply begun to realize that some victories no longer bring the peace you were actually searching for. At first, that change can feel confusing. You may wonder if you're losing your drive, becoming indifferent, or no longer ambitious enough. But if you listen more deeply, you'll discover that what you're experiencing isn't a loss of motivation. It's a shift in your soul's priorities. The things that once felt incredibly important begin to lose their weight, while the things you once overlooked quietly become deeply meaningful. You start spending more time on genuine conversations, on moments of peaceful solitude that no longer feel lonely, and on the quiet satisfaction of living in alignment with your own values. You stop measuring your worth through other people's opinions and begin measuring it by the peace you feel whenever you're alone with yourself. From the outside, your life may not look dramatically different. You still work hard, you still strive, you still pursue goals that matter, but the reason behind your efforts has changed. You're no longer living to be seen. You're living to be yourself. From that place, every decision feels more natural, and every step feels lighter, because you're no longer being driven by the fear of judgment, but by honesty toward the deepest voice within. As your awareness expands, the first thing you usually let go of isn't the outside world, it's the need to become a version of yourself that pleases everyone else. And that may be one of the clearest signs that your inner transformation has truly begun.
6. The paradox of the modern age. Have you ever wondered why we're living in the most convenient era in human history, yet finding inner peace seems harder than ever?
With nothing more than a smartphone, you can access almost any piece of knowledge, connect with people on the other side of the world, and instantly find out what's happening anywhere on the planet. Never before has humanity possessed so much information, such advanced technology,
or such constant connection. And yet, quietly, a paradox has emerged. The more connected we become, the lonelier many people feel. The more choices we have, the more overwhelmed our minds become. The more information we consume, the easier it is to lose our sense of direction. It isn't because the world lacks answers. It's because the voice of the world has become so loud that the voice within us has grown increasingly difficult to hear. Every day, your mind absorbs thousands of images, headlines, notifications, and conflicting opinions. They arrive one after another, leaving almost no room for silence. Information is evolving far faster than our inner world can process it. You know more than ever before, but that doesn't always mean you understand more deeply. You see more, yet sometimes you struggle to truly see yourself. When your attention is constantly pulled in every direction, mental overload gradually becomes your normal state. Your body stays locked in a constant mode of reaction. Moments that could have been restful are filled with screens. Quiet minutes are quickly replaced by another video, another news update, another notification. You may think you're taking a break, but your nervous system is still being flooded with stimulation. Maybe what you're missing isn't more information. Maybe it's more space to hear yourself. A pause long enough for your thoughts to settle. A breath deep enough to remind you what truly matters. Because when your spirit is constantly swept away by external stimulation, it's easy to forget that your deepest sense of direction has always come from within. Perhaps the leap in consciousness this generation needs doesn't begin by searching for something new. It begins with having the courage to step away from the noise and return to your own presence. In a world that constantly encourages you to look outward, choosing to listen to your inner voice may be the quietest and most profound act of reclaiming clarity, balance, and peace.
7. The power of small pauses. You may have believed that life-changing transformations only come from life-changing moments, a journey across the world, a major crisis, a single event that changes everything. But if you look closely, you'll discover that consciousness rarely grows through extraordinary moments. More often, it's nurtured by the tiny pauses we usually overlook. Sometimes it's nothing more than taking one deep breath before the day begins. One slow inhale that reminds you you're actually here, instead of already racing toward everything waiting ahead. Sometimes it's 5 quiet minutes when you resist the urge to fill the silence with music, scrolling, or endless streams of information. In those few brief moments, your mind has the chance to become still, like a lake after the wind has settled. Sometimes the pause appears in the middle of a conversation. Someone says something that hurts you. Instead of reacting immediately, you choose to observe your emotions for just a few extra seconds. Those few seconds can completely change the outcome of a conversation, and sometimes even transform an entire relationship. You're no longer being carried away by your emotions. You're becoming the one who watches them pass through you. There are also days when you leave home without your phone. All that's left is the sound of the wind, the warmth of sunlight, the green of the trees, and the steady rhythm of your footsteps. Suddenly, you realize the world has always been this beautiful. It's just that your attention has been divided for so long by countless voices competing for it. That quiet moment doesn't add anything new to your life. Instead, it helps you rediscover what has been within you all along. The smallest moments often create the greatest transformations, not because they're magical, but because they gently guide you back to yourself, again and again. Every pause is a reminder that you always have a choice in how you show up for life. Consciousness isn't built through one dramatic awakening. It's built through hundreds of ordinary choices made every single day. Every time you breathe a little slower, listen a little more deeply, walk a little more mindfully, or choose not to react the way you always have, you're laying another brick in the foundation of your inner life. And one day, when you look back, you'll realize the greatest transformation wasn't the world around you. It was the way you learned to live within it.
8. Practicing the return of your energy. If your mind feels like it has wandered too far, perhaps what you need isn't to run faster just to keep up with life. Perhaps what you need is to gently come home to yourself. Not to a place on a map, but to the quiet presence that has always existed within you. Allow yourself to pause for just a moment. Relax your shoulders. Take a slow, gentle breath in and simply notice your breath moving through your body. There's nothing you need to change, just observe. Now imagine a soft, warm light appearing above the crown of your head. It isn't blinding, it's simply warm enough to let you feel safe, peaceful, held. Slowly, that light begins to flow down through your head, soothing the restless thoughts and quieting the noise you've been carrying for so long. Let the light continue down into your throat, the place where so many unspoken words have been stored, the emotions you've held back, the moments you stayed silent even when your heart wanted to speak. There's nothing you need to force away. Simply allow the light to pass through with kindness and compassion. Now the light reaches your heart, the place that holds your memories, your joy, your wounds, and your hopes. Let that space soften. Let every heartbeat remind you that no matter how much life has changed, there has always been a part of you that has never left. The light continues downward into your abdomen, where the body often stores tensions the mind doesn't even know how to name. With every breath, you feel lighter, more open, more spacious. Finally, the light flows through your arms and into your hands, as though every part of your energy is reconnecting into one peaceful, whole current. In this stillness, gently repeat these words, not to convince yourself, but as a loving reminder. I am coming home. I let go. I remember who I am. Maybe nothing outside you changes in this moment, but every time you return to your breath, return to your body, return to your own presence, you're reclaiming the energy that has been scattered across worries, expectations, and the endless noise of daily life. And sometimes, that journey back to yourself is the greatest gift you could ever give yourself.
9. The 3 gateways to awakening. The journey of awakening doesn't happen in one dramatic, life-changing moment. It's more like walking through a series of quiet doorways, each inviting you to look a little deeper into yourself. No one else can open those doors for you. They only open when you're ready to observe, let go, and be fully present. The first gateway is awareness. This is where all transformation begins. Every day, where is your energy going? What is draining your life force? What is the very first thought you have when you wake up? Which emotion keeps showing up the most? Which unseen patterns are quietly influencing your mind day after day? These questions aren't meant to judge you. They're meant to help you recognize the invisible current that has been steering your life. You may begin to realize that many of your reactions aren't actually coming from the present moment. They were shaped by old memories, unresolved wounds, and deeply rooted beliefs that have been with you for years. When you're unaware of them, it feels like you're making choices. In reality, you're often just repeating familiar patterns. Awareness is like turning on a light. Wherever the light reaches, awakening begins. The second gateway is identity. Almost everyone longs for a new life, but the hardest part isn't changing your circumstances. It's having the courage to let go of the person you thought you had to be. The older version of you did everything it could to survive. It learned to please others in order to be loved. It hid its emotions to avoid getting hurt. It stayed quiet, endured, and adapted so it could be accepted. Be grateful for that version of yourself. You don't need to reject it or fight against it. It helped you make it through seasons of life when you didn't know any other way to live. But just like a favorite shirt that once fit perfectly when you were a child, there comes a time when it no longer fits the person you've become. Maturity isn't about erasing your past. It's about gently stepping beyond the identity that no longer serves you. The third gateway is conscious participation. At this point, consciousness is no longer just an idea to read about or a concept to think over. It becomes the way you live. It shows up in every word you speak, in the way you listen without rushing to defend yourself, and in how you respond when life doesn't go according to plan. It's reflected in the information you choose to feed your mind, the care you give your body after exhausting days, and the way you show up in your relationships with honesty instead of hiding behind familiar masks. Awakening doesn't separate you from life. If anything, it brings you back into it more deeply than ever before. Every conversation, every decision, and every breath becomes an opportunity to choose from clarity instead of habit. And perhaps, after walking through these three gateways, you'll discover that what has truly changed isn't the world around you, it's the way you show up within it.
10. Consciousness isn't the same as positive thinking. One of the biggest misconceptions about expanding your consciousness is the belief that life will become filled with nothing but positive emotions,
That you'll always feel peaceful, always stay optimistic, and never be shaken by life's challenges again. But if you look more closely, you'll see that consciousness isn't about painting every painful experience with bright colors. Consciousness is the ability to stay with the truth instead of running away from it. There will still be days when you feel afraid. Old memories will still surface without warning. Deep wounds will still touch the most vulnerable parts of your heart. The difference isn't that those emotions disappear. The difference is how you meet them. Instead of immediately pushing them away, you begin to observe them. Instead of denying them, you listen. Instead of resisting them, you allow them to exist without letting them define who you are. Consciousness invites you to look directly at your fears, your unhealed wounds, the emotions you've been avoiding, and the truths that have been difficult to accept. Not so you can blame yourself, but so you can understand that every experience is telling you something about what still longs to be loved, understood, and healed within you. Perhaps maturity doesn't begin when life finally unfolds exactly the way you hoped it would. Life will always bring surprises, losses, and changes beyond your control. What changes is that you no longer place your entire sense of peace in the hands of a world that must behave according to your expectations. The hope of someone who is truly growing is no longer everything will work out exactly the way I want. Instead, it quietly transforms into a deeper truth. No matter what happens, I still get to choose how I respond. And within that choice lies a freedom that no circumstance can ever take away. Consciousness doesn't make life perfect. It allows you to be fully present with life, whether it is calm or stormy. Sometimes the clearest sign of awakening isn't that you smile more often, it's that you've become steady enough to move through difficult seasons without losing your connection to yourself.
11. The greatest opportunity is also the greatest risk. Every morning when you wake up, your day doesn't simply begin with a list of things to do. It begins with a quiet choice. What will guide your mind today? You may not realize it, but every image you look at, every piece of information you consume, and every thought you repeatedly entertain is patiently shaping who you are, little by little. If you don't intentionally choose what trains your attention, countless other things will gladly do it for you. If you don't consciously decide what shapes your identity, society's expectations, external standards, and old fears will quietly begin writing your story in your place.
And if you never make time to listen to your inner voice, there's a good chance your life will end up being directed by the endless noise surrounding you. This doesn't happen overnight. It's like a steady stream of water slowly wearing down solid rock. Every unconscious choice leaves behind a tiny mark. Every habitual reaction, every moment you let fear make your decisions, every time you lose touch with the present, all of it gradually comes together to create a way of living that you eventually mistake for your true nature. Perhaps humanity's greatest opportunity isn't the ability to control everything happening in the outside world. Perhaps it's the ability to choose what nourishes the world within. You can always choose what you read, what you listen to, who you spend your time with, and which thoughts you continue feeding. From those seemingly small choices, an entirely new direction begins to emerge. The greatest danger isn't the uncertainty of the world. The world has always been changing, and no one can stop it. The greater danger is living an entire lifetime without ever becoming fully aware of what has been guiding you all along. You may still keep moving forward. You may still work hard and pursue your goals, but every decision may be driven by momentum instead of intention, by habit instead of awareness, by old conditioning instead of conscious choice. A life lived unconsciously rarely begins with one catastrophic mistake. It is built through countless small moments when you forget that you have always had the power to choose. And perhaps the very moment you begin paying attention to what is shaping your mind, your journey of awakening has already begun, quietly, gently, and almost without you noticing.
12. The greatest leap of this century. If there is one true leap happening in our time, it may not be about smarter machines, faster technology, or abilities that push beyond human limits. The greatest leap isn't about turning people into superhumans. It's about helping us reclaim mastery over our own inner lives. For most of our lives, we've been taught how to survive. Study so you can adapt. Work so you can feel secure. Strive to earn recognition. Keep moving so you don't get left behind. Those lessons all have their place during certain stages of life. But sooner or later, you begin to realize that surviving isn't the same as truly living. You can fulfill every responsibility, accomplish countless goals, and still feel as though a part of you has never fully awakened. Perhaps the greatest leap in human consciousness is the shift from unconscious survival to conscious participation in life. You no longer spend your days simply reacting to whatever happens. Instead, you pause to observe before you choose. You stop allowing old wounds to dictate how you love, fear to quietly shape your future, or other people's expectations to become the only map for your life. Little by little, something subtle begins to change. You no longer see life as a series of events happening to you. Every experience, whether joyful or painful, becomes an opportunity to understand yourself more deeply. Every encounter becomes a mirror. Every challenge becomes an invitation to notice what within you still needs healing, letting go, or nurturing. There may have been a time when you believed, life is happening to me. That belief carries a sense of powerlessness, as though your happiness and suffering are determined entirely by forces outside your control. But as your awareness expands, a different perspective begins to emerge. I'm learning to be fully present with life, not because you can control everything that happens, but because you no longer lose yourself in the middle of it all. Maybe this is the greatest leap of the century, not a revolution in technology, but a revolution in the way human beings relate to themselves. When you learn to observe instead of merely reacting, to listen instead of rushing to respond, and to choose instead of living on autopilot, the world around you may continue to change, but within you, something steady and unshakable begins to take root. And perhaps awakening isn't the final destination after all. It's the way you move through each day, with a more awake heart, a clearer mind, and a deeper presence in every moment of your life. It doesn't mean life will no longer bring challenges. It means that even in the middle of those challenges,
you remember how to come home to yourself.